Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is To Back or Not to Back. We're going to be going through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns, talking about what's in them, talking about what the pledge levels are, what the campaigns consist of, does it make sense to get them now or possibly get them later, all that and more as we go through all this, and of course, links and timestamps to everything down below. We are catching up from being off last week. I was at Gamma. Not only was I at Gamma, I was pointed out, Shelf Clutter, by the way, great channel, go ahead and subscribe to Shelf Clutter, but he reached out to me and pointed out that I forgot to do my upcoming crowdfunding campaigns for March video, which would be the first time in a very long time that I forgot to do that. There have been like once in a while I won't do it intentionally, or I'll talk about why I'm not doing it because it's the end of the year, there's not enough campaigns, but I completely forgot to do the crowdfunding campaigns coming up for March, so I guess you'll just have to subscribe to Shelf Clutter and find out what's coming from his channel this week instead of mine for the entire month because I didn't do that video. But past that, like I said already, we are coming back from an off week, which means I am catching up on a lot of campaigns. To that end, there are 4 campaigns I am going to cover, but I pushed them off to next week just because it's already going to be a long enough video as it is. And with that, let's go ahead and start us off as usual with Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is the segment where before we dive into all these magnificent crowdfunding campaigns that are going to show you a lot of cool games at a lot of different price points and games that you won't see for a while, this is your regular reminder that Cult of the Now is that you can get good games now. You can get good games at a regular price point, retail price point, no deluxifications that you'll never need or miss. Get them without having to worry about getting them a year and a half from now, putting down money a year and a half. Get them while being able to check out a lot more reviews on the games themselves as opposed to a handful of YouTubers who got their hands on it. You can actually check out informed coverage from not just, people in the industry, but rather your peers as well. Get a lot more information. Cult of the Now is that reminder. And today we have Dorfromantic the Duel coming to you from Game Nerds, currently available for $28. The 2-player version of Dorfromantic, which despite Dorfromantic the board game being a game that I both appreciated and ultimately was not for me, I still do want to play Dorfromantic the Duel, but I don't imagine I'm prioritizing it. But if you do want it, because it was very popular, well, the board game and the video game, they were all very popular, you can go ahead and check that out over on Game Nerds. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into the campaign, starting off with the, I'm not even sure if this is board game adjacent, but I didn't want to skip it because it's large enough. I think I mentioned it last time. Like last time when Brandon Sanderson completely broke Kickstarter, when he did his last campaign, raising the most any campaign has ever done. I believe I mentioned at the time, it's barely board game adjacent, outside of the fact that Brandon Sanderson, I guess, is tangentially involved in some of his board games. He's been working with, oh my gosh, the people who do Boss Monster. Brotherwise Games, I think it's Brotherwise, right? He's been working with Brotherwise Games on RPGs and miniatures and things like that. I believe he'll have board games coming. He's done board game video games. He's really kind of a little bit all over the place, in a good way, in a very good way. But I'm not going to really go into the campaign very much over here because, again, it's barely board game adjacent, but raising $17 million with 59,000 backers over on BackKit, doing so well, I believe it broke the site at the very beginning of the campaign, but ultimately doing incredibly well over on the site, and it's just if you're interested in a leather-bound series or a whole bunch of ways to spend as much as $600, I think the all-in pledge was $600, to get any number of Brandon Sanderson content and upgrades and secret projects and all these various things, you can check out the campaign. Again, I'm not really fully going to go into it just because there's no board games here. There's not even, it's geek adjacent, I guess. But either way, Brandon Sanderson, a leather-bound set, and more coming to you over on BackKit. And then in the not funding category, or the not yet funding category, although it's not looking great, we have Train Rush over on GameFound. Train Rush from MTE Games. This one, unfortunately, is 13,000 euro raised out of a 45,000 euro goal, 138 backers, and I just don't see it crossing the finish line, unfortunately. A disclaimer, oh yeah, disclaimers by the way, forgot to do that, but a regular reminder that I do work for GameFound, please take that into account as we go through this video. And in the case of Train Rush, we also did sponsored content on the Board Game Co channel. Past that though, Train Rush is a game that is, well, it is a game, all the game. Train Rush is a heavy Euro game that's going to involve you trying to, taking advantage of, participating as one of 4 factions as you try to trade, exchange, transport resources, build up your influence in various countries, ultimately try to be the person with the most points as you build up your network across the course of the game. But ultimately, this one does not seem to be finding its target audience well enough, and a lot of people following the campaign, but they didn't convert enough on the campaign itself. Unfortunately, €79 for the base pledge over here. Again, I think we're looking at a relaunch coming back at some point. It's just unlikely to cross the finish line at this point. But if you are looking for a mid to heavyweight Euro game, this is one to keep an eye on. It's gonna be Train Rush from MTA Games. Then we have Fled over on Kickstarter, $25,000 raised out of a $50,000 goal, 491 backers. This is coming to you from Mark Swanson, who's done, oh my gosh, what's the big box game? Feudum, who has done Feudum, the big box game Feudum. Mark Johnson did that one, and this is Fled. Fled is going to be a tile-laying game of, you know, stealing potatoes and trying to get out of prison. It's an Irish prison, that's what's going on. That's why the potatoes in the prison line wouldn't make sense outside of the context. Irish prison puts that all together for you. But this is, like I said already, going to be a tile-laying game where you're trying to gather various equipments, escape from prison. Illustrated by, oh my gosh, illustrated by Clemens Franz, I believe. I believe it's Clemens Franz who illustrated this one. It looks like his artwork. I think that was the name on the page. I just have to, like, find it again. But either way, this is another one that it's currently unlikely to fund. It's a little close to the funding level. It's a possibility, but I'd say unlikely. Probably looking at a relaunch coming back. And this is one of the interesting things because it's interesting that a lot of times when people are relaunching, there's going to be jumping platforms. Train Rush, I imagine if it relaunches, I imagine it'll relaunch on Kickstarter. That's usually the go-to. Fled, on the other hand, I know that they're doing Feudum over on GameFound, so I'd say there's a decent chance they relaunch over on GameFound. And I think in general that just makes sense. In general, if you are trying to relaunch, why not do so in a way where you're bringing over the people who are interested, but also potentially targeting to whatever few people you might have missed platform to platform. But it's always an interesting conversation to see how these things go. Ultimately, both of them are doing well, but not well enough, and that's just, you know, that's where we are in these ones. And then we're not done yet because we have another one, unfortunately. We have Ocean Slayers as well. It's interesting. They're not yet funding categories. Sometimes we have like none for weeks, and then other times we have a bunch. Usually I don't cover. I mean, there's always a ton of campaigns that aren't funding. I just don't cover all of them because, well, that'd be a very long video. I usually try to cover the ones that I thought were a bit more primed to fund and then aren't. Usually the ones I think have a bit more interest and still aren't making over the finish line. That's where I find it a bit more interesting, give it a little bit of spotlight, hopefully help, but again, in these three cases, I think it's less likely. But we have Ocean Slayers, the Bermuda Chronicles, 19,000 euro raise out of a 100,000 euro goal. It's a fairly ambitious in this one. It's unlikely to cross that finish line, 100 backers. And again, you know, price point and pulling people in, had a lot of followers, but that price point plus what the game looks like, and it's trying to find your audience over there, and this one unfortunately isn't doing so as well. So again, a third campaign that if you're interested in this, go ahead and follow. I'm sure you'll get updates if or when they relaunch on all three of these campaigns, but for right now, I'm skeptical that any of these will fund. And with that, we can go ahead and dive into the new campaigns, the campaigns that are funding, starting off first and foremost with Ready, Set, Bet High Roll Edition from AEG. 3,000 backers on the campaign, $240,000 raised. Ready, Set, Bet is, well, a very popular game. A game of frantically rolling dice, or one player being the caller or the roller, whatever the terminology is, as they roll the dice and steadily advance the horses across the finish track. Meanwhile, players are trying to claim stakes on the various on the various spots on the board. Claim them too soon, and you may be doing so with non-information. Claim them too late, and you won't be getting the best odds because other people have already locked in the best bets on those horses. So you're frantically moving, you're frantically trying to make sure you have enough money to make all the bets you want to make and hope for the payoff that you want to see. This has been an incredibly popular betting game. There's a lot of these games that have this kind of aspect of trying to predict the leader. Anything from Camel Up to Unstable Unicorns to, what was that roll and write version of it? There's a roll and write racing game with horses. I can't remember the name offhand, but there's a lot of these games that have that kind of dynamic, and Ready, Set, Bet seems to have been one that really took almost the party nature by storm. It's very much a gamer's game, but a party game at the same time. There's a lot of those in the genre, and this one has done incredibly well, and apparently has been incredibly requested to get a premium version of the game, which is what this crowdfunding campaign is. You can go ahead and get Pledge Manager access for $4. In general, like, you know, you can always get Pledge Manager access almost no matter what. Paying for Pledge Manager access, the only reason to do that is if you think you're locking in the better prices, if you think the prices will otherwise go up in the Pledge Manager, which sometimes does happen, but other times, you know, you get access either way. But over here we have High Roll Edition for $89 for a copy of the High Roll Edition. That gives you the larger box, the larger meeples, the full-on rolled out playmat, the better dice, the better poker chips. Basically takes the entire core game of AEG's. Like, it's a $30 game. It's not an expensive game, very easy to get your hands on. In fact, in general, if you are someone who has not played this game, just get the $30 game. It's probably plenty for you. It probably will satisfy all your needs for this. I would say the target audience for this campaign are going to be people who have played it, whether they own it or not, and know that they want a game like this in their collection. Ready, Set, Bet is one that I've had a chance to play a few times at the very beginning when it first came out. It's one that I want to play more. I know it's been incredibly well received. Lots of people love this game. I believe it was Tom Vassel's #1 game of all time, or is it 2023? I don't remember. I think it might have been his #1 game of all time this past year, but that's Ready, Set, Bet. And by the way, if you ever see Tom at a convention, he is always ready to jump straight into this game. It makes complete sense. We have the All-In over here. The All-In is going to be giving you 2 extras, the AEG red dice, as well as a set of horses that are named after various AEG games. So if you want to see, I don't know, anything from Undergrowth, was it Undergrowth? I think that was what it was, or from Space Base, or Dead Reckoning. If you want to see them all themed as horses to root for, then you can go ahead and check that out. There's also an app for the game as well. We have poker-style chips, we have a giant-sized mat, we have casino-style dice, giant horse meeples, and the same exciting gameplay of the game. That's going to be the Ready, Set, Bet campaign. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Short conversation on that one is, It's always hard to say with any game that doesn't fall into a typical norm. What I would say is usually more often than not, deluxe big box games have done a very good job holding the value if they are also popular games. When you take a game that's like a regular $30 game and you deluxify it to the nth degree, whether it's Catan or Small World or Tokaido or any of these big games, more often than not, those games don't stay in regular print and they become sought after the fact. It's not a guarantee. There are some exceptions to this, but for the most part, if you ever seen Giant Azul, try to get your hands on that for less than what the original cost was. Big games, for whatever reason, if they are a popular game and they get a big version of it, which is definitely what Ready Set Bet is, usually these things do hold their value. I'm not guaranteeing it'll always be the cheapest option, but these are the types of games that frequently do go out of print, frequently don't get reprinted, and then someone else 4 years from now is trying to hunt down a deluxe giant copy of Ready Set Bet and paying 3 times the price point to get their hands on it. That kind of thing is not atypical at all when it comes to this style of game. So not a guarantee by any means, but I'd say if you are interested in getting this game, I would assume that this is the kind of thing that's going to be printed and not be in print as much as the demand is there for it. That's going to be Ready Set Bet, so I would recommend going ahead and backing this if you are interested in the game. Moving on, we have Ascendancy. No, where we go. We have this is called Ascending Empire Zenith Edition. Experience the fast 4X sci-fi adventure game with flicking. It has flicking. That's what the game has. You're going to be flicking little discs across the galaxy in this 4X/dexterity game, coming to you from Play to See Games, a new company started by a bunch of industry veterans, but most including Zev. Oh my gosh, it's Zev. I think it's slash. I don't want to pronounce your last name incorrectly. Zev Schlesinger. That's what it was. So Zev Schlesinger over here, but Play to See Games. And a bunch of other people as well. He's like the forefront of the company, I believe. But 459 backers, $43,000 raised, 5 days to go. This is basically a full-on retail edition. That's what this game is. There's nothing extra or exclusive here. It's going to come down to the price point of this one, but this basically is giving you the 4X game being brought back into print. When I first got into the hobby, this is already a game that was out of print and hard to get your hands on, and it's at different points in time, it's been incredibly expensive. I think right now the retail on the second-hand market on this one is a little bit more reasonable, nothing particularly crazy, but currently it's coming at $110, which is going to be saving $30 off the MSRP. And there's nothing deluxe or exclusive here, which means ultimately it's going to come down, unfortunately, to the price point plus shipping. And again, this is a 4X flicking game, so if you like 4X and you also like the idea of a dexterity game where you flick your way across the galaxy, that's what this combines. And it looks like it is a big upgrade on the original game, just in terms of the way the components are for this one. The original game had major issues with the interlocking boards. But either way, as far as the price point on this one, if you're saving $30 at the MSRP, which means MSRP of $140, then the main question, if there's nothing exclusive, which there doesn't seem to be anything exclusive, at least not that I can see, the main question is going to be shipping prices. And if we scroll down to shipping, which I can never see on the sidebar over here, shipping over here, we have $25 to $33 is going to be the shipping prices for all regions. And the tricky part there is even at the low range of $25, that brings you up to $135 on $140 MSRP, which means for most people who have regular access to an online game store, your regular online discount with free shipping built in at that price point is going to be cheaper than getting it on crowdfunding. So it's not that I think you shouldn't get your hands on this game. I think you should look into it, see if it's a game for you. But ultimately, I think that the tricky part to navigate around crowdfunding is just that because there's nothing exclusive here in any way, and because this likely is going to be available at retail, they're going to be like, again, the industry vets over here, so you're going to have a lot of retail connections and retail availability. I just think this is one that if you are interested in this one, if you just want to get your hands on it faster, or if you want to support the creators, by all means, back the crowdfunding campaign. And if you're interested in getting your hands on it later, it's going to be cheaper later, just even straight up retail. Forget the second-hand market, just straight up retail is going to be cheaper on this one. Moving on, we have Floe. Floe coming to you from Pika Games, 4,300 backers, $459,000 raised, 8 days to go on Floe coming to you from Pika Games, who are the same company who have done Fantasia games. And again, I've spent enough time in my other videos going into, I'm not entirely sure what the goal or the distinction between them is, but ultimately here we are with Floe from Pika Games. Because originally, and again, I've gone into this videos, I know they've answered. I think I still don't, as a backer or a consumer, I don't have a clear vision distinction, but ultimately Fantasia Games put out these incredibly intricate, Euro experiences that are highly rewarding and have a lot going on them. My original impression of Pika Games was to being a slightly more family style weight class to your table, which I don't think Floe is falling into that category, and I think they've given some answers as far as the theme or the type. I don't know if I've gotten a full answer. Not to say there isn't, I just don't have I guess the way I'd put it is I don't have a clear distinction for myself. If they announce their next game, which one's going to be Floe and which one's going to be Fantasia. Like they have Colosseum coming out, is that one's Fantasia, but why is it Fantasia and not Pika? These are semantics, by the way. These are semantics. I'm just getting like stupidly stuck on semantics. Anyways, Pika Games over here, Floe coming from Pika Games, from Henry Audubon, from Johnny Pack, and from Yuma. Oh my gosh, Yoma, not Yuma. Jeez, Yoma, Henry Audubon, and Johnny Pack. Illustrated by Andrew Bosley. This is going to be an adventure game. An adventure game which you're going to be taking yourself, your character, and your familiar, wandering around the board, exploring various caverns, wandering in, fighting monsters, trying to find more aspects of the board, going back to the village, trying to ultimately get your little, oh my gosh, the flow points, the flow like points and whatnot, by raising your various indicators to the max, and then going ahead and going to specific spots on the board where you can go ahead and earn a flow point as you ultimately try to navigate a bit of a point salad. Like they say, it's not a point salad, and it's not a full point salad, but there's a lot of pathways to victory, I should say. There's multiple pathways to victory as far as how you can approach this game. You could win the game without ever fighting a monster, or you could be diving into the caverns left, right, and center whenever you have a chance to try to become the best monster slayer you can. There's a lot of ways to approach this. It is an adventure, sandboxy style game. That's basically what's going on in Floe. 1 to 4 players, 1 to 2 hours. It's got an iterative degree of discovery to it, so you're going to have the initial game and the tutorial and the way it walks you through it, and then it layers on the additional elements of the game to hopefully not overwhelm you as you go through it. You can check out a variety of content from playthroughs to reviews to coverage to previews, any number of things on the campaign. But with that, as far as the pledge levels, you have €65 for the base game, as well as the, what's it called, the stretch goal expansion, Life Along Floe, and that's basically a bunch of components that they're adding. We'll see that soon enough. You have €79 for the base game, Life Along Floe, as well as the digital soundtrack, and then we have over here €107, so $118, which is going to be you the Monsters Unbound expansion, and then lastly over here for $147, we have all the playmats, the sleeves, the deluxe fight tokens, all of that, and just to be clear, you can configure your own pledge levels as well as far as getting whatever you want. Obviously take into account the additional savings you get from bundling it all in one pledge level. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and scroll through this over here. We have the dice tray, we have the wooden token set. This is an add-on. That's going to be, I believe, the wooden token set is this one over here. I have to double check that. And then we have all these various social goals and stretch goals and all these things being unlocked throughout the course of the campaign. This bringing you the idea of which ones are going to be Kickstarter exclusive, which ones are going to be Pika Games exclusive, all of that as you go through it. And then we have the MSRPs and all of them, showing you the full MSRPs, which is a relevant factor. As I talked about already with Ascending Empires, generally when you're looking at general online retail versus MSRP difference, you're usually looking at anywhere between 20 to 30% discount from the MSRP. So when you see $100 MSRP, that is not the price point of a game from your typical online retailer, unless they are enforcing like direct from retail like sales and whatnot. But if the game ever goes to a miniature market, to Game Nerds, to any of those sites, then you're looking at 20 to 30% discount as a regular US consumer. Obviously you have to know your own market where you're from and what the stores are like, but that means $100 MSRP is really equal to $80. So when a game tells you, hey, it's $90, which is a discount from the MSRP, it's not really a discount. At least to most backers, that's not going to be a discount, and you have to take that into account. It's always been a pet peeve for me. In fact, we'll get to it later in this video where I'm a little disappointed. But as far as Floe goes, as far as the various MSRPs over here, the main thing to look at is what do you actually want and what's the savings MSRP, and then of course taking into account the shipping as well, because that's going to be the other factors. Let's go ahead and scroll to shipping over here. Shipping is going to come in at anywhere between €17 to €25 on the various pledges, which bites a lot into the lower pledge MSRP savings. If I can go back, where's my pledge levels over here? If I go back to the pledge levels, that bites heavily into the MSRP savings on the lower pledges, which I scroll past over here. But so for example, the MSRP of $90 for the Explorer pledge, and coming in at $70 price point, when you're paying more than that in the shipping costs, that's not really going to be much of a savings for you overall. So if you're looking for this game, I'd recommend, if you're looking at the lower pledge levels, I would recommend just waiting for retail and getting it cheaper there, or alternatively hoping it goes on sale in the used market as well. Not all games hold the value in the used market. In general, not all games hold the value in the used market. So there's always three comparisons. There's the crowdfunding, there's retail, and then there's the used market, which are different conversations. We have the Adventure Pledge for $85 for a MSRP of $130, and again, if you price that out, that one's much better once you factor in the savings, but that has to assume you want that. So for example, do you want the Floe Deluxe, the stretch goals, and the soundtrack, because you're basically being added the soundtrack over here. Is that, what are we looking at over here? We have the Floe Deluxe, that's the main difference. So you're getting the deluxe version of the game, which is a big difference. It's not, because I was like, the soundtrack alone is not a $40 difference in MSRP, unless someone is, that's not a $40 difference. But the deluxe edition of Floe, you're getting that over there. That's already going to be a much better option as far as trying to get your hands in it, both because of more limited availability, but also the MSRP jump. And that's going to continue to go up over here. We have the Floe Hero for $115 and $170 MSRP. So again, you got to write off the soundtrack, see how much you care with that. But just looking at the expansions and the pledges and the deluxe, that's already where most people are going to probably land over here, trying to get something like this, trying to see where there is. Alternatively, I'd say Epic Hero. These two are likely the most popular. Let's see, we have Floe Hero at 467, and we have the Epic Hero at 2,362. So people jump straight up to that one. Yeah, that's not even... I'm completely wrong in which one. We have the Adventure is more popular. People definitely want the Deluxe, but the Floe Hero, it looks like once you're jumping from the Adventurer to Floe Hero, most people are jumping straight up to the Epic Hero over here, which makes sense over here. People want everything. The tricky part about pledges like this is you have to factor in that MSRP savings is taking into account things you might not care as much about. So for example, do you care about playmats? Because I'm always someone notoriously who I like playmats in theory, but if they're not stored in the box, they're just a pain to get out and deal with. So I find playmats I like but don't actually deal with, and sleeves and collector's box, all those things, what do you value? But ultimately, all these things come down to that savings. What do you value? What's the MSRP difference? What's the savings? And I'd say that on these higher level pledges, on any of the higher level pledges, you are getting enough of a savings that even once you factor in the shipping, it is still actually a good deal, which is true for Fantasia Games' past campaigns, for Endless Winter, for Unconscious Mind. They generally are games that have done a fairly good job holding their value, not across the board. They've had like Endless Winter is a good example. I can find plenty of people who sold their games for more than what they paid for them, and I can find plenty of people who sold them for less than what they paid for them. It is a little all over the case. The game was both well received to a large extent in some areas, and also some people found it fiddly, so it's kind of got that mixed audience to a degree, which is something that I do anticipate happening with Floe, for example. I think Floe is probably going to find itself in a very similar spot. So I'd say your main options are, if you just want all the stuff, and the simplest way to go ahead and get one of these higher level pledges. They can be the best value for your price point. Alternatively, if you're not certain where you are on this one, you might want to wait for the secondhand market and see how it goes. I think there will be copies that you can get for cheaper if you're willing to price hunt and not be in a rush, so it is a little bit of a mix there. Although again, if you're backing this, I think it'll hold its value for a bit, and then slowly over time, I think the market will dip again, similar to the way Endless Winter has been. So kind of a holding its value at first, and then not so much as time goes on. I've spent way too much time in this campaign. That is Floe from Pika Games. Time to move on to the next one over here, because it's going to be a long video today. We have Thunder Road Vendetta. That's not the Thunder Road Vendetta, Carnival of Chaos. $1.2 million raised, 9,800 backers, 8 days to go. This is bringing you a Thunder Road Vendetta reprint, as well as a Carnival of Chaos expansion. This is coming to you from Restoration Games, and this is, I don't even know if this is the most popular game, but I think it's the highest rated. Like, their games in general, outside of the original Fireball Island, a lot of their recent crowdfunding campaigns from Thunder Road, from the Dark Tower, they've been incredibly well received overall, and they've done multiple campaigns around these, and it's just, again, people keep coming back for them. They've taken these older games, they've redeluxified them, they've brought them back to your table, and they've been well received, which is a testament to Restoration Games in general. Thunder Road is basically a racing shoot-'em-up game. That's the core concept of this game. Again, the original Thunder Road is around, then we have Thunder Road Vendetta, and now we have Thunder Road Vendetta Carnival of Chaos being added to that, and yes, it does fit in the box, assuming you get the box extenders, which is free for the most part, so it fits in the box. Anyways, past that, Thunder Road is basically a racing game of mayhem and destruction. From various vehicles, from motorcycles, from helicopters, all racing around the board, trying to blow people up, and just, it's a game that everyone I know who I've spoken to, I've not played this one, unfortunately, I want to play it, but everyone I know who I've spoken to has basically had the same feedback. If you're looking for a well-controlled experience in which it feels like you're completely in control, and it feels like the best players rewarded the entire time, this is not a game for you. But if you're looking for a game that does have decision and agency and a lot of fun and complete chaos, and where it's a game where you're going to go ahead and blast your opponent to smithereens as you shoot off the back of something else across the finish line while a helicopter blows up 3 other people behind you, if you're looking for the cinematic experience that's also going to have agency within it, then this is very much a blast of a good time. I've had a lot of people give that general vibes. It's just a good time. It's just a good time. It's not a heavy Euro game where you're going to optimize your way to perfection. It's just a good time. And that has me mixed in this one in general, because I found that racing games, for me, racing shoot-'em-up games, I have found that I generally enjoy them, but I don't clamor to get them back to the table. I have fun when I play them, but I'm never actually trying to pull it off the shelf. Although from what I've seen, Thunder Road Vendetta might be the best one in the genre, which means I probably should give this one a try at some point. It's on my list. It's on my list. I have someone local to me. He has a copy. He said he's going to play it with me at some point. We'll make it happen. It's going to happen. Anyways, Thunder Road Vendetta. So that's the general idea of the game. Carnival of Chaos is going to give you this inner ring to wander your way around, as well as additional factions and components, a bunch of extras to the campaign, and of course an opportunity to refresh people on the fact that this game exists, and all those people are trying to get your hands in this. Speaking of holding its value, the original Thunder Road Vendetta more than held its value on the secondhand market. This is a game that did incredibly well in the secondhand market. People were clamoring to get their hands in it. If you had a maximum Chroma edition of this one, you were selling it for well above its price point, and that's likely going to hold true today. We have the new stuff, the ticket to the show, $45 for that. We have the Maximum Chrome expansion, which gives you, not expansion, the Maximum Chrome base pledge, which gives you all the deluxified stuff from the original campaign. And then we have the Tina's Dynamite deal of the day, which gives you all the new stuff, as well as the metal scrap tokens and box extender, all of that for $200 on this one, which does seem to be one of the most popular pledges on the campaign over here. We have a lot of people coming back for the new stuff, 3,600 people. We have some people coming in for the Maximum Chrome, a bunch of dollar pledges, and then 4,100 people clamoring for the Tina's Dynamite deal of the day, which means they are not just catering to people who backed the campaign the first time, they are very much bringing new people to the table with the campaign. Then we have the Friendly Local Grease Monkey, which is for brick and mortar stores and all that. And then, of course, I should say the box extenders. If you don't get the box extenders with the Tina's Dynamite deal of the day, then you can get it in the Pledge Manager. I believe it will be free for the box extenders, and they have a lot of stretch goals. I'm not going to spend the time going through all of them because this video is already going to be way too long, but they have a lot of stretch goals to go through, things that they've been unlocking. They've, they've made that box extended color, they've added new cards and new stuff and just new things to the game. Here we go, here's that box extender that helps Maximum Chrome fit into the box. MSRP of $20, but it's going to be free for you. And again, MSRP on things like that are always a tricky conversation to judge something that I don't even know if it will be sold down the road in stores. Anyways, that is basically what we have for the Maximum Chrome for Thunder Road Vendetta. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Short version is yes on this game. This game is it's been very hard to get your hands on the deluxe version of the game. Restoration Games has a regular retail edition of the game available. People have been snatching that up, but people want the Maximum Chrome edition. And so if you are someone who's in any way interested in this game, I think this is a very safe back that will absolutely hold its value, even if it's a game that's not for you, because a game like this will not be right for everyone, but it's going to be right for a lot of people, and so far the secondhand market and general opinions and reviews on this game have shown that this is a game that has a demand, and will continue to have a demand, and I think your pledge is a safe back, whether or not you end up liking the game. Moving on, we have Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure Game Wizarding Duels. $385,000 raised, 2,100 backers, and 9 days to go. This is Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure Game Wizarding Duels, and disclaimer that Board Game Co. has done sponsored content around this game. But Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure Game Wizarding Duels. There's a lot of reasons to back this game, a lot of reasons not to back this game. First of all, it's coming to you from Night Games, who they have had their issues with crowdfunding in the past, and transparency and delays and all that. Although it does look like to a certain extent they're trying to use this campaign to in some way help with that reputation, because if you follow the campaign, they have 2,000 pledges of this ready to go, which so far with 2,900 backers, not everyone's going to be able to get your hands in it. But they have 2,000 pledges of some of the base content of the game ready to go and ready to ship for people who want it right away. So, and I have to imagine that in some way they're doing that to help fix their reputation, because Night Games in general, they're a miniatures company. They've dabbled in the board game space with Catch the Snitch, with Batman Arkham Asylum. Was it back? I think it was Batman Arkham Asylum. Whatever it was, the GameFound campaign with Batman, the Joker, all that. And now they have Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure Game Wizarding Duels. I think the fact that they have 2,000 pledges basically ready to go, and they're like, hey, these are ready. They're going to go. It's basically a pre-order on some of these. I think some of that is just specifically to address the delays they've had in their past campaigns and to build up their reputation again. So again, both things are true. They have a reputation. You have to know the reality of that reputation. But also, I think they are specifically trying to right that wrong to some degree with the way they're approaching this campaign. The second thing is, of course, this is Harry Potter, which has its own interesting aspect as far as who likes supporting Harry Potter and who doesn't. I'm not going to dive into that in this video. Do what you want as far as your own personal levels of support. J.K. Rowling is J.K. Rowling, for better or for worse, and obviously anything that does have a licensing degree does benefit her to whatever degree. So just full awareness, back what you want, and back what you want and do what you want with that information. Past that, what's the game itself? The game itself is, Wizarding Duels over here. This is going to be a skirmish game for 2 players by default, although there is an expansion that's going to add solo and co-op going up to 1 to 4 players. But the 2-player basic game over here is you're going to take control of a set of wizards. I believe you can have up to 6 wizards on each team. You can check out a gameplay on the channel where I think we did 4 wizards-ish, or 3 wizards plus a familiar type person, whatnot, the snake and a Hedwig and Nagini. But past that, I believe you can have up to 6 wizards on your team, each one having their own stats, their own keywords, their own abilities, their own gear you can go ahead and gather, and there's going to be an activation system across 3 rounds of play while you attempt to accomplish as many goals as possible. You have your own little deck of objectives, 9 objectives. You're trying to achieve as many as you can while trying to not necessarily kill the other players per se, but killing other players will certainly help you be more likely to actually achieve your objectives as you go through the game. There's a lot of intricacy going on in the game, a lot of things to be mindful of. If you watch the gameplay, there's a lot of stuff going on in the gameplay. There were keywords that I don't think we did things wrong per se in the gameplay, but I think we didn't take advantage of certain keywords, just the sheer amount of information. I think this is a game that will reward players who want to dive into it again and again. I think this is a game that will be overwhelming if you're diving into it for the first time. Just the sheer amount of cards, of information, of spells, of potions, of goals, everything going on in the game. There's just a lot going on, which again, I think is good for players who want to dive into it fully. I think it might be intimidating for players diving into it the first time. We have the base pledge coming in €55 for the Owl pledge. That gives you the base box plus stretch goals. We have €150 for the new pledge, which gives you a bunch of expansions. We'll scroll through all those shortly. And then we have €270 for basically all of the various expansions before we get into the store pledge over here. So €270, $296. That's a lot of Harry Potter content. Although we have 340 people jumping into that level, and it seems like they have more content coming for the game. Like they have a year 1 expansion, but not a year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I assume those will be coming as well. But over here we have the base expansion over here, exclusive gifts, night games, various miniatures. These are the various unlocks they've had on the campaign already, just bringing more and more characters to your Harry Potter universe. Although I will say they have learned from Catch the Snitch. In the Catch the Snitch, they originally put Harry Potter as like a exclusive thing, and people were losing their mind over that. They're like, why is Harry Potter not in the core game? Which I think they've learned from that one, at least this time around. So they are responding to community engagement and feedback and all that. But €55 on a €100 MSRP, €100 MSRP for the core game. Bunch of miniatures. We got Voldemort, we got Harry, Death Eater 1, Death Eater 2, who I assume was Lucius and what's Lucius' wife? Who's Lucius' wife? I can't remember her name. Whatever her name is. Anyways, I assumed that was that, but I was wrong. Just Death Eater 1, Death Eater 2, meaning in the gameplay I got it right, just to be clear. But when I first was unboxing, I thought. Anyways, we have the new pledge, €150 over here, which gives you the additional Servants of the Dark Lord expansion, the Magical Master expansion, Students and Magical Creatures expansion, and all the daily rewards and unlock social stretch goals. And over here we have What's the Magical Master expansion, showing you the various characters. There's going to be a ton of characters for this game. You do not need all this, especially if you're diving for the first time. But if you are someone who just wants to just jump straight into it, well, there's a lot of content to jump straight into it. We have the Servants of the Dark Lord expansion. Again, lots of people here. I'm not going to name every single one as we go through it. We have Death Eater 3 and Death Eater 4. I think that's funny. I do think it's funny that we have, like, Death Eater 3 and 4 are the additional characters we have. There's so many characters to pick from. Either way, I like the sculpts, I'll say that much. Anyways, we have the Students and Magical Creatures expansion over here. We have Dementors and Ginny Weasley and Cedric Diggory and Gilderoy Lockhart, Dobby, Pansy, Parkinson, Gregory Goyle, all these various characters over here, plus all the exclusive unlocks. And then we have the Aura Pledge over here, which gives you additional content and more expansion stuff over here, including the Monsters expansion Basilisk, which gives you the co-op and solo mode for the game. And then we have the Monster expansion Fluffy, which will bring it up to a 4-player experience, I believe, over here. New rules, new adventures, gigantic monsters, enjoy wizarding duels in co-op and solo mode. I think specifically the Fluffy expansion makes it 4 players. I'm not sure if the Basilisk expansion does. I could be wrong on that. I know one brings it to co-op and solo. I think it's the Fluffy expansion that brings 3 to 4 players. I could be wrong, though. Check the FAQ for that one. We have the Hogwarts supporters expansion, so we have Arthur, Victor Crumb, we have Nymphadora Tonks, Fleur Delacour, Madame Maxine over here, who I hope is a tall miniature. She better be a tall miniature. I'd say a good size would be good. Anyways, that's what we have over here. Then we have a bunch of the various daily rewards, which you already saw up top. You'll see more of those unlocking as you go through it. And that's basically what we have going on for the game. Again, we have the Year 1 expansion. Where's the Year 1 expansion? Did we cover it already? Did we have cover the Year 1 expansion? Oh, there was an opportunity, or there is an opportunity to get some of the original Catch the Snitch. The Catch the Snitch All-In is already gone, but the beginner set is available for those who want it. So if you want to jump in that at a slightly higher price point than the original campaign, which in general I do support doing that, makes your early backers feel rewarded for getting it when you're bringing the project to life. And that is basically what we have over here going on throughout the course of the game. So should you back or should you not? Will hold its value? Hard to say on this one. This is one where if you look at the original Catch the Snitch set, you can see a few different options. As usual, like I said already in this video, there's going to be crowdfunding, there's going to be retail, and there's going to be the second-hand market. If you're comparing it to retail pricing, the discounted MSRP versus the final price versus the price and shipping, I think you're getting a good deal here. So if you're purely comparing it to retail pricing, I think overall you are getting a good deal. If you compare it to the second-hand market pricing, it kind of depends on where you look right now. There's not a lot of sales in the BGG market on the Board Game Geek marketplace, but from those few sales, it would appear that it's not holding its value. Versus if you go ahead and head over to eBay and check out the pricing on the sets compared to eBay, it looks like it is holding its value. So I think this is one that's going to mean I'm referring to the original Harry Potter Catch the Snitch. I'm using that as a baseline. We have miniatures, Harry Potter, night models, all of that. So if you're using that as a baseline, it looks like that. It depends on the marketplace you're selling it at. So I would say expect that kind of reality. If you back this game and it's not for you, will it hold its value, or did you just waste a lot of money? And I think go ahead and try to sell on eBay would be my recommendation, because if you try to sell in the BG marketplace, I think there's slightly less of a demand, which makes sense. This is going to be slightly more of a mass market appeal. It's both combining, you know, more gamer gameplay versus a mass market appeal, which means it's getting a little bit more steam on eBay compared to BG marketplace, which might be a bit more critical on whether it's a game for them or not. And so that's why I'm in this one. Kind of could go either way on holding its value, but I do recommend selling on eBay if it's not for you. Moving on, we have Expedition Northwest Passage HMS Terror Edition. 450 backers, $28,000 raised, 9 days to go. This is bringing you, it's coming from Meeple Games. We brought a few campaigns past, and then we have Expedition Northwest Passage coming back to your table. This is going to be a tile-laying exploratory game as you place down tiles, move your ships around, try to score as many points as possible. This is going to be a $52 game. That's all it is. Basically, it's pre-stretch, the new solo co-op mode, the Terror Mini expansion, all that €52 for the game. $52. I've been saying euro for so long through this video. $52 for the game. It's basically basically just pretty straightforward as far as everything goes over there. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, again, it seems to be more one that's going to just be cheaper at retail. Once you factor in the shipping on top of the game, again, you're looking at the MSRP for this $52 versus, you know, what's it called, which is about 70 Canadian. Where was the MSRP? I saw the MSRP somewhere. I don't see it right now, but once you factor in, I'm pretty sure Kickstarter, $52, retail, $67. There we go. $52 versus $62. So there's a savings in theory. The tricky part is that saving is completely eaten up by your shipping, which means you're basically looking at a pledge that you're going to be paying more for it on Kickstarter to get your hands in it compared to getting it at retail down the road, assuming it's makes its way to retail. With 451 backers, I think it's a little bit more of a question of how much that retail presence is. So I'd say the main reason to back is either the FOMO that you might not get it at all, or of course supporting the creator, but price point is probably not a reason to back this one, unfortunately. Moving on, we have En route. We have En route coming to you from Crowd D Games. 390 backers, $18,000 raised, 9 days to go. En route is going to be a stroll and write game. The amount of ways people try to be clever, and I don't blame them, I would also try to be clever, but the amount of ways people try to be clever as far as redefining roll and write and what it is, it's a flip and write, it's a roll and write, it's a draw and scribble, it's any number of these different terms, it's verb and verb. There's a reason people call them verb and verbs. Anyways, this new verb and verb game, En route, coming to you from Crowd D Games, is going to be available for $35 for the retail edition, or $48 for the special edition, or $91 for 2 special editions. So not as fun, but, you know, practical, I guess. $48 for the special edition over here. What is this game? It's going to be a roll and write. It's a roll and write. It's not a stroll and write. It's a verb and verb. A verb and verb game, which you're going to be exploring various cities. Going to be rolling, I believe it was placing 3 cards down, using 1 card to fill in your grid, using the other 2 cards to explore the map over here. So it has a degree of agency and deterministic approach to how you're going to be trying to navigate around the board and do what you need in this game, trying to score as many points while exploring the various cities. And then the Kickstarter version of the game is going to be bringing you 2 new cities plus some upgrades. So we have all these various cities over here to explore and to find new details and things about them. There's a lot of cards for this game. I think the sleeve pack for this game has like 300 sleeves. There's a lot of cards because you have all these cards for all these different cities over here. So the retail version of En route, so we have the special edition is going to be retail plus everything listed below plus all unlocked stretch goals. So it's got everything you see already. Player boards, 4 double-sided player boards with city maps, 1 double-sided round board, the special dice over here, all those things. We have new cards for the new cities, we have new effect cards, new trigger cards, the treasure chest over here, Las Vegas and Venice over here are going to be the things. You have the plastic tray. So basically the deluxe edition is just a little bit better in terms of components, a little bit more in terms of stuff, and 2 new cities for your game. You also have sleeves, $7 for 300 sleeves, which is not the worst price over here as far as sleeves go. I recommend Sleeve Kings in general, not sponsored by them, just the sleeve brand I use. But even so, $7 for 300 sleeves, not a bad price point. I just like the consistency of my own sleeves, and that's basically what we have for the game over here, plus a variety of stretch goals slowly being unlocked. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? This is interesting. There is some exclusive content going on here, so it's not a direct retail comparison. Whenever a campaign just gives you a retail copy, it makes that whole retail comparison just a little too easy, sometimes not in the favor of giving you a reason to back. In this case, if you want the Kickstarter exclusive stuff, your options are going to be the secondhand market or backing on crowdfunding, which changes the conversation. If your goal is just getting the best game at the best price point, I recommend the retail edition of the game. Between you and I know that most of us don't play our games as much as we think we will, and having 6 cities and not having all this upgraded stuff is probably going to be totally fine. So if you're just interested in the retail edition, go ahead and wait till it's at retail. You'll be able to get it for a little bit cheaper, and I think they'll be available. Crowd D Games in general does have a retail presence, so if you're just interested in purely bang for your buck, I highly recommend waiting for retail and getting a retail copy of the game. If you really want those extra stuff over there, I'd say that the print run on this one is small enough that your options, I'm not confident it'll hold its value. Not confident at all. But I do think if you do want those extras, you just don't want to have to deal with that mental stress, the difference in price point of what you're looking at, especially combined with the low availability of this one in the secondhand market, just because of the number of backers, means I think that even though I don't think it'll hold its value, if you do want those extras, I would recommend going ahead and backing on Kickstarter. Moving on, we have Dying Light the board game. 5,500 backers, $739,000 raised, 10 days to go, coming to you from Glass Cannon Unplugged. Dying Light the board game brings you parkour, combat, urban exploration, day-night cycle, lots of zombies to go ahead and defeat and avoid in this game. That's going to be obviously based on the video game. So Dying Light the board game, not the video game, because the video game already exists. This is going to be coming to you from Glass Cannon Unplugged, who have done a bunch of video game adaptations from Frostpunk to Apex Legends, which Apex Legends has not yet delivered. Frostpunk has, but to a lot of critical acclaim. And this is one that I think will be... I think this one has its audience primarily because they do a good job of standing out as different as far as the game goes. I think this is very different as far as the feeling of it. It's not your usual zombie game. It does feel like it has an element of parkour and jumping from building to building, and jumping over zombies and around zombies and escaping them while engaging with the story that's going to play out over the course of the map. I do have review coverage you can check out. There's also gameplay coverage. I should say more first impressions coverage because I only got one scenario for the game, unfortunately, so there's just only so much I can really talk about. But from that one scenario, just having a full-on story play out across the course across the board, across the map, is just something that was a very different and very enjoyable experience. But you can check out my review coverage of that over there. Past that, we have the Dying Light over here. We have standard pledge for 60 euro, $66. We have the Last Hope Axe available for 90 euro or $99. Also, full disclaimer, while I did not do paid content around Dying Light the board game, I did absolutely get an axe. I got their like little content creator kits and whatnot, so I do have the axe. Take that into account for whatever it's worth. Past that, I did not realize it was a $90 axe. It's a cool axe. I do like it. Past that, we have $121 for the deluxe pledge, and that's going to be effectively your all-in, or I guess the all-in would be adding the axe to that, because you could get the axe as an add-on. In fact, it's funny, it's like 8 people who are backing the axe just because they want the axe. They don't want the board game. They just want the axe, which I guess makes sense. I mean, cool weapons are cool weapons. I will say there is metal. The axe has a nice firm heft. There is metal on it at parts. The actual like main blade part is not metal. It's like more of a, I don't even know what material. It feels like it feels tough, but it's clearly not metal. I think they listed the material, but I don't know what it was offhand. But it did feel pretty premium. Anyways, as far as Dying Light the board game, what do we have? So we have the board game over here. We have a full breakdown of the various pledges over here. 60 euro, 110 euro, the standard, deluxe. They do a great job breaking down what you're getting over here. There's some in-game exclusives. If you are someone who's playing the video game, you get some of that extra content over there, which I guess is a little value add. I don't know if you even can transfer it. I assume if you get it, you have to be able to connect it, so you must be able to transfer it. I don't know the details, but in some way that might be sellable. Some people do sell, like I remember like 6 Siege, they had a lot of people selling skins from the campaign on the secondhand market, and there's a way to pay for your entire pledge if you did, although again, that's a nightmare that I'm not even getting into, at least not right now. We have the core box over here, Forerunners, base wings, stretch goals. We have the expansion effective miniatures, so there's a few options over here. You can get the core box, just the regular miniatures over there. You get the expansion with all these things in miniatures. There's also an acrylic option, which I do highly recommend checking out. I'm a big fan of premium feeling acrylics. I think acrylics can go either way, but these ones look cool. They look very much, they remind me of Deliverance, which I think Deliverance is a game that I prefer the acrylics to the miniatures in Deliverance. And I think that's going to have the same vibe over here, so definitely consider that as an option to think about. Maybe you want both, maybe you want one. I don't think you need both miniatures and a full acrylic set, but up to you. But if you want that slightly more, painted look on your table, I do think acrylics are a good option, especially if you're someone who doesn't paint your miniatures. Past that, a bunch of stretch goals being unlocked, a whole bunch of stretch goals and daily goals to scroll through, more content, new infected, spitters, the scars of light. I'm not going to be going through all this. Again, these are not full-on deep dives because I'm covering 20 campaigns in a video, and we only have an hour. It's going to go over an hour. Anyways, that's what we have over here. That's what we have is Dying Light the board game. A parkour-based, parkour-based, zombicide-esque, but not really, more scenario-driven, cooperative experience that is very different, very cool, has a lot of table presence, and is one that you might want to check out. As far as should you back, should you not, will hold its value. Again, hard to say to an extent. I think there is fatigue around these big box games. I do think that is a decent chance to hold this value. I think that Frostpunk has done fairly well in the second-hand market, but in general, Frostpunk is a game that, again, they have a strong retail box, they have a very expensive retail box, then they have those extras from the crowdfunding campaign, including Sundropped and Shaded or whatever it was. So I think this one falls into the probably will hold its value, but not a guarantee. I think there is some degree of big box fatigue, and if you don't stand out, like, so I think Maximum Chrome, Thunder Road Vendetta, does a great job standing out just because it got so much reception, and it's different than your standard miniatures game all over the tabletop. But by now, there's so many companies who are putting out this style of game that I think some still are safe bets, some are definitely not, and some fall into the middle. I think Glass Cannon, I really want to see Apex Legends deliver and see how well that one does. Right now, I'm just basing everything based off of Apex Legends, based off of Frostpunk, I mean. And so that is not enough information. I think it's a relatively safe back. You might lose something on it. I'm not fully confident in this one. You might just want to win the second-hand market and see how it goes. In general, if you're not sure, I do recommend not backing it because there's always other games, and you'll always have opportunity to get your hands on this in one way or another. Moving on, Chroma Arcana, a tactical card game of dueling mages. I'm not loving the new, I don't know, you keep seeing this, every time my mouse loosely touches that, it's jumping up. Also, I haven't even talked about this, but have we talked about the new Kickstarter interface? And again, I'm about to whine about Kickstarter, take into account the game found bias and all that. But are any of you loving this whole, percentage thing that they now show, where they don't show the funded, they just show percentage? Because personally, I find that incredibly annoying, although again, I definitely recognize I interact with crowdfunding differently than many people because I'm doing a lot of research in here, but I find that percentage thing very annoying personally, and this whole interface right now feels a lot more jittery as far as how quickly it's showing the top of those, which I don't think it used to do, and I have to be mindful of as I'm doing these videos. So small pet peeves as I go through this video. Chroma Arcana, a tactical card game of dueling mages, TCG style play without the boosters, all in one box with optional 1 to 6 player co-op expansion. Over here we have 2 pledge levels over here. It's gonna be a dueling wizard game, lots of cards, lots of abilities, lots of great beautiful art coming to you for first time creator Rock Nest Games, but definitely backed a lot of games. We have over here pledge manager access for $1. We have the base game for $38, and then we have the solo and co-op bundle for $51 if you want more content, and of course the Tyrant Hunt expansion, turn the game solo or co-op for those who possibly don't have friends to play with, or possibly prefer playing alongside their friends, or possibly just want solo or co-op in addition to all those options. But it's going to be have you building your deck, charging your spells, battling it out. Apologies if I don't have a ton of information on this game. I find games like this, it's very hard to get a feel for. This is a dueling game. It's going to have card play, and you're going to be attacking each other. Very hard to get a feel for these until you actually sit down and play them. There's so many card-driven games out there. I will say I'm getting vibes similar, not for any particular reason, but I'm getting vibes similar to Wizards of the Grimoire. I find most of these games, I tend to be a little dismissive of this when they're first on crowdfunding because it's so easy. Relative to other game design, creating card games are easier than other games, and so they tend to be a bit more common, although it does seem like Rocknest games are, building an audience, doing what they need here. They have a fairly successful first-time campaign over here. The art and everything looks beautiful, so I'm in a weird place in this one where I'm both like, another card game, but also I'm optimistic about this one. I think it does look good, does look cool. I'd love to get my hands on it at some point and play it and see if it's one that I'm interested in. I'm particularly interested in that solo or co-op mode. I have plenty of these head-to-head games, and I find head-to-head, I find games like this, I'm usually either fully invested or not bothering to invest at all. Versus if you give me a solo or co-op mode, totally changes the way I might interact with it. So that's going to be Rocknest Chroma Arcana over here. Definitely interested in this one. Looks very cool. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. Generally not on these things. Again, nothing against them particularly, but once you factor in the shipping prices over here, because shipping is not a small amount over here, once you factor in, it's not a ton, but you're looking at $14 to $18 or $18 or so to get your hands on the game, in addition to the price of the game itself, just means it's one that's less likely to hold its value. It's not a thing against them per se, it's just the harsh reality is anything at a cheaper price point on crowdfunding, once you factor in shipping, unless that shipping is heavily subsidized, and they're stuck. That $18 just, it's almost certainly what they're being quoted, they're likely not making money on shipping, and this is just one of those cases where it's a little bit harder. So support this one if you want to support the creator, or if you just don't want to deal with hunting it down the road. But otherwise, I do not think this is one that will hold its value, unfortunately. Moving on, we have Ostia plus. There we go on the bar. I'm gonna have to learn to scope around that bar. Ostia plus Pirates expansion reprint. 2,400 backers, $212,000 raised, 15 days to go. This is a reprint campaign for Ostia plus the expansion. The last Ostia campaign did, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was less than this because they had it in a different currency. This one seems to be already 20% higher, and we have 15 days to go, so this is doing fairly well as far as, bringing a reprint and expansion to the table. This is coming to you from, I'm not going to try to pronounce the company name, but they have a bunch of games. They have Aqua, is it Aqua Guardian? They have Aqua Guardian, they have Ostia, they had another game that looked very cool. Oh my gosh, I want to look at it. They had another game that looked very cool that I was very interested in. Did not back it because I'm backing less these days. Biohack is very cool. And they say Aqua Garden, then Ostia, then Aqua Garden expansion, Biohack, and Ostia expansion. I assume we'll have a Biohack expansion next once that delivers. But either way, all of them look very interesting. They have a very, very nice look to the games and a very premium feel. The games have generally been very well received so far. And Ostia is basically bringing you a Mancala style mechanism. The original game of Ostia is bringing you my Mancala style mechanism. I do have a review on this game. You can check that out. Not sponsored content, just a review on the game, having gone through both the base game on its own, playing the base game solo, and playing with the Pirates expansion as well. So I've gone through a variety of ways with this game over here. Overall, I really enjoy it, and I think the Pirates expansion does add to the game. Ostia on its own is already a good game, and the Pirates expansion, I think, further adds to that gameplay in general. Gives you more things to consider, more fun stuff to get, and more ways to approach the game, giving you a lot of ways to just keep the game fresh every single game, including variable things that are in the game, because of the nature of some of these scrolls you're going to get, or the new buildings that are going to come for the Pirates expansion. Basically, the idea of Ostia is you're going to have a little bit of Mancala mechanism, where you have your own little harbor. Does it show the harbor over here? I don't know if it shows the harbor. They might be focusing more on the expansion, which makes sense. But you basically have a little harbor where you're going to be placing ships into this harbor to both activate when you draw from the harbor area, you're going to be producing resources, and then depending on where you land, you're going to get an action. So you're trying to be mindful of these things as you figure out where your ships are going to go, as you try to slowly move your ships across the board to different endports in the game. Meanwhile, the Pirates expansion adds a bunch of things to consider. The base game has plenty to consider already, but the Pirates expansion adds more things to consider, from pirates you have to take down, from legionnaires who are going to gather your strength, from treasure chests you're going to try to gather, from new buildings new building options for when you build buildings in the game, and ways to get extra bonuses there. Lots of fun new things going on in the game, and that's before you even talk about the two new modules, because they also have the Merchant and Patronus modules as well, which are little mini expansions that I have not had the chance to play myself. Those are available for $10 each, or alternatively as part of the base game Pirates plus 2 expansion pledge over here for $110. Speaking of which, for pledge levels, we have $40 for the standard pledge for the Pirates expansion. In general, I'd recommend waiting for retail, although it's tricky because, honestly, they don't have the greatest retail presence, so it's a little trickier there. For $66, you get the metal treasure chest and the metal tokens over here as well, plus all achieved stretch goals, which I think you get already, so you already get that. You're basically paying $26 for the metal extra tokens, for both the corruption tokens, I can't remember what they're called, but the corruption-ish tokens, plus the metal treasure chests. And then you have $189 for the base game plus the Pirate expansion, $110 for base game plus Pirates plus 2 expansions, and then $115 for Ostia plus Pirates plus the Luxify tokens, $135 for Ostia plus 2 expansions plus the Luxify tokens plus Pirates. That's what you're looking at, $135. Again, they're trying to mix and match in all the possible ways, which is doable, and they have been able to do so over here. That's going to give you all this stuff over here. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Overall, my instinct is yes. If you look at the original Ostia, not a ton of sales on the game, but it's a game that has been decently well rated. It's not the easiest to get your hands on it, and if you look in the secondhand market, it's a game that has held its value overall. So my instinct is to say that this is likely going to remain true as well over here. In general, as a publisher, this company just doesn't have the widest retail availability, which means that combined with the premium feeling games and big box, like Ostia's a big box, by the way. That's like, feels like a Lacerda box, maybe a little less thick than a Lacerda box, but it's got that size and heft, so it feels like a premium game, plays like a premium game, it's well rated, and overall the availability, all of those combined to just make this one that I think will hold its value if it's a game that you're interested in. And of course, factor in shipping as well. Shipping is still a cost and still present, and just take that into account. Moving on, we have Meeple Inc. over here. We have what? We have 3 campaigns more? Let me see over here. The last one over here, yeah, we have only 3 more campaigns. We're doing, I guess I'm doing fine. I'm doing more fine than I thought. I have like 4 extra tabs because usually I only talk about 2 upcoming campaigns. This week I'm talking about 4. We'll get into why very quickly, but those are just 2-second conversations. That's not a big deal. Meeple Inc. Meeple Inc. over here. This is going to be coming to you from Cogito Ergo Meeple, who did Solo 175 plus some other games. They had a game before and a game after it, but I don't remember the names of those offhand. But Cogito Ergo Meeple Inc. is going to be a game about board games. That's basically what it is. Also, full disclaimer, Board Game Co. did sponsor content around this game. But Meeple Inc. it's a game about building board games. It's a worker placement game, which you're basically trying to gather the mechanics and the theme and the art. I can't remember the 3 things. There's 3 things you're trying to put together effectively as you put together this game, as you try to go ahead and figure out, you know, what board games you're going to be making, and then slot them into your adorable little shelves over here. You have little Calyx shelves in the game. The entire game is chock full of little references, including the Golden Pier expansion, which obviously is a reference to the Shut Up and Sit Down, you know, Pier Award. There's just the whole entire game is layered with little references from the various companies. There's like Gammon and Asmodeus. There's all these different companies. Like, again, it's full of references to board games, to companies, to content creators, to any number of things in the board game space, but ultimately at its core, it's a worker placement game where you're trying to as efficiently take actions as possible as you can throughout the game. For the most part, I think the game looks great, is very charming. I've seen people comment on the board that it looks like an absolute cluttered mess, and having played the game, I'll tell you that unfortunately that is true. I do hope they look at the board. I think the rest of the game is chock full of charm. I do think the board could use some polishing up, because right now it's full of charm, but unfortunately it's so full of charm you can't really see the rest of the game behind it. So, I don't think it's like, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think that the rest of the game is so cute and adorable that I would love to see that part polished up. Past that though, you have things like this over here. Like, just look at that. That is a fun little thing to have, a little tabletop Calyx. We have Terraforming Mars over here. We have Event Horizon, which I guess is Eclipse, maybe, I'm not sure, who really knows. We have Beak Size, which is Wingspan. They have all the Floe, Pandemic over here. Whatever this Cthulhu Death May Die, I assume, but who knows. I Like Trains. All these little references to all these different things over here. That's basically what we got over here. We got a board game about making board games, lots of charm, ultimately a lot of little inside jokes, and a lot of worker placement as you try to count down the turn track when you recall workers, activate workers, get special workers, a lot of things, the fun things going on in the game. And again, you can check out the preview video on the channel if you want to know more, or a variety of other content out there as well. That is basically going to be Meeple Inc., which brings us to the pledge levels, which is going to go over here. We have rewards. We have the all-in for €118 over here. We have the €45 for the base game on its own, and the €69 for the base game plus the deluxe expansion, the exclusive deluxe fighting components, and all of that. That's basically what we have as far as this goes. And as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? This one I'm a little skeptical it will. If you look at Solo 175, and I don't have a ton to go off in this one, but just looking at Solo 175, there's a few options you can try to find on eBay and on the Board Game secondhand marketplace, and for the most part it seems to be a game that is not holding its value. It looks like a game that's selling for below what people paid for it, and that's before you factor in shipping. So if you do want this game, by all means back it, support the creator, get your hands on it first, guarantee all that stuff. The flip side of it is just looking at their past campaigns. I just think so far the indication is that this is less likely to hold its value on the secondhand market if it's a game that's not for you. Moving on, we have Galactic Cruise, second last project over here. 4,800 backers, 513,000, 23 days to go. This is doing incredibly well from semi-first time creator, Kinson Key Games. It's our first project as a company. I believe 2 of the people on the team, I think it's a team of 3, I think 2 of the people on the team did design a game before this, so it's mostly first time, company, mostly first time creators to a large extent, but they're knocking it out of the park on Galactic Cruise. They did a great job building up awareness, engaging with the community, doing absolutely everything right across the core. Basically, everything you could possibly do right to bring a crowdfunding game to life, they have done. I highly recommend. There's many companies that have done this as well. They're not the first, but they're definitely an example of a good company that is a good case study for how to create a successful first Kickstarter. They put in the work and they got the reward with a campaign that's doing $513,000. They're doing incredibly good work. Again, lots of things to get into as far as complimenting them, their approach, the way they approach the market, and the success they've had. It's due to what they've done. They have put kudos to them. Kudos to them. But past that, we have over here Galactic Cruise. Galactic Cruise is a game that is, and again, there's review content on the channel. No sponsored content, just a review content on the channel if you want to check that out, as well as, of course, reviews and gameplays from a variety of other creators. But Galactic Cruise is a game of trying to, launch Galactic Cruises. You're going to be trying to put together your spaceship, build the various the passenger modules, gather new spaceship components, trying to upgrade your ship in a variety of ways, get new cards, and ultimately it's a bit of a worker placement game to a degree while you try to gather new passengers and slot your cruises in. Lots of interesting things going on in the game. It can be a little overwhelming at first. It all flows together very beautifully, but there's definitely a lot of information going on because you're playing like a full worker placement game in one area. You have to explain all the various ways they implement. You have to explain the entire personal player board and the way that tableau's out. The fact you have to explain the nature of trying to manage your people while they're in space because they're still in space on their cruise while you're still engaging in worker placement. So there's a lot of things. It beautifully comes together. It really, really does. It comes together tremendously well, but it is still a lot to explain. So there is that aspect. This is a medium to heavyweight worker placement game. I'd say the rules... There's a lot going on here, but it's a very satisfying experience. I do recommend this if you're a fan of Lacerda games, or if you're a fan of medium to heavy Euro games. This is definitely going to be something that is going to be very rewarding. You just have to be prepped. There's a lot to go through. There's a lot to teach and a lot to keep up with, but it does come together very nicely. I'd say by the end of my first game, I felt like everything was jiving beautifully, and if you dive into it again, it's just a very clean experience past that. But anyways, past that, as far as the pledge levels over here, we have a few pledge levels. We have $89 for the Promising Supervisor for a pledge over here. That's going to be giving you basically the game. We have $104, which gives you the Advancements expansion. We have $104, which gives you the Accommodations expansion. $119, which gives you both expansions. There's not really a saving there. It's $15 per expansion on a $20 MSRP. We have $129 to give you the Deluxe Bits over here. And then we have, from there, we have some pledge levels that are all gone over here. But $4.99, $9.99, and $14.99, all of which give you every future KKG, Kins and Key games game and expansion, but also giving you various other perks along the way. But they're also all gone, so unless those people drop out of those 40 pledges, 50 pledges are gone. But also kudos to them for bringing in a lot of people to be the groundwork, the groundswell of this company. So good job to Kins and Key Games. Congrats to all the people who got those, and to everyone else, you can just get the game and the expansions and the upgraded bits. That's basically what we have over here. As far as should you back or should you not will hold its value. Well, I mean, expansion-wise, do we have time? The Advanced Expansion and Common Expansion basically add modules to the game. So there's three things over here. There's Deluxified Bits and then the two expansions. The Deluxified Bits are exactly what they sound like. They're various upgraded Deluxified Bits for the game, giving you upgraded Deluxified Bits for the game. Then you have the Advancements and the Accommodations expansion, which gives you modular expansions, giving you new upgrade cards and plus a variety of extra things to mix into your game in different ways. They go through it on the page if you want to see exactly what's included in each one, but they give you new ways, new augments of the game, including in the Accommodations expansion, I believe is the Accommodations expansion, there's Quick Start asymmetrical bonuses, which I love stuff like that because it makes me feel like I can do more in the game, and it's just fun to go ahead and get your hands on. A little less balanced, but a lot more fun. Anyways, as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? And this is where, for the first time, I'm disappointed in Kins and Key Games. And I might be wrong on this. There's always the possibility I'm wrong. If I am, I'll post an update. But honestly, with most companies, I don't even assume I'm wrong. I think with them, I'm a little surprised only because of how well they've done everything else that I'm like wondering, did I miss something? Did I do it wrong? I don't know. But they talk about, there's basically nothing exclusive on this campaign. They talk about it very specifically in the FAQ on the page. They don't want to like split up the game. They just want to make a good game and just deliver a good game. And to that end, they're focusing on the reason to back the game is going to be based on price and not based on exclusivity, which is a good premise. Except they're doing that thing I said that people sometimes do where they focus on the MSRP price point and not the actual price point, which means they commit to the idea that there's a savings, but it's a false sense of savings. Unless Kins and Key Games is enforcing some sort of map, or unless they're selling it only on the website and they're not having retail distribution, if they have $109 MSRP and an $89 price point, once you factor in the price of shipping, and there is some discounted shipping, and plus once they make more money, it's a little more discounted, but nonetheless, once you factor in the price of shipping on the MSRP, you are not saving money if you back the game now, so you're not getting something exclusive, and you're not saving money if you just back the core game. Even as you back more, there's there's a bit more of a savings, but especially on the core game, if you're interested in the core game, it will be cheaper at retail. That doesn't mean don't back the game, it just means know that it's cheaper at retail, and then make a decision because you want to get it faster, you want to guarantee access, you want to support the creator, just know what you're getting yourself into. So again, at $89 on $109 MSRP, once you factor in shipping, you are spending more on this game than it will be on the second, forget the second market, at retail. You're spending more on the game, and you're not getting anything exclusive for it. And again, for most creators, I kind of assume that's par for the norm. For Kins and Kian specifically, because of how well they've done everything else, I'm kind of like, I guess I'd say I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that they kind of went with that, general pitch of, hey, it's a savings, when for many people, it's not actually a savings. So, and they specifically covered, they said, our goal is for price plus shipping to be cheaper than getting it later. And I respect that goal, and that's an admirable goal, but it's a goal that's not being met. That $20 for difference on the MSRP to the price point of the game, you're paying more for the game because it's not going to be $109 when you're buying it at retail. Now, as you go up in pledges, that savings does increase. As you go up, because the expansions are $20 a piece, and you're getting it for $15, so you get an additional $5 to each tier, and the shipping isn't increasing as much. So as you go up, you get to a reasonable price point, but honestly, I think you have to get the future as CEO for there to be realistically be a savings on the game. I think any other price point, you're not really getting a savings. Once you're interested in Deluxified bits, at that point, you're getting a savings, and also Deluxified bits are usually the least available and second and on retail in general. So my recommendation on this one is, if your goal is price point, then only back it at the future CEO pledge or anything higher. Well, the higher ones are complicated to talk about, but don't back it anything lower. If your goal is just getting your hands on the game or supporting the creator, which are totally fine goals, then by all means back whichever level you want. My goal is not to tell you what to do. My goal is to give you the information, and then you can make an informed decision about what decisions to back are right for you. That's going to be Galactic Cruise Games. Overall, very impressed with the creator. Tiny little slip on that last line for me, which again, I still wonder if I'm wrong. I wonder if I'm wrong in that one, but as of right now, what I'm seeing does not represent a savings. It represents a crowdfunding savings, which is usually just marketing talk, unfortunately. Moving on, and just to be clear, I want to be very clear, because I say stuff like this sometimes, like, that's not an excuse to, I'm not trying to demean Kins and Key Games. I think they've done a fantastic job. I'm not trying to accuse them of any negative intent in the slightest. I'm just commenting on the difference between... don't assume negative intent. I try to be more critical of actions, not people. People are just trying to do the best, myself, yourself, and everyone else. Moving on, we have Cascadia over here, Cascadia Rolling. I guess that makes more sense than calling it Cascadia Rolling Right and Flippin' Right and Cascadia Rolling Rivers and Rolling Hills and all that. But 5,300 backers, $186,000 raised, 26 days to go. We have Flat Out Games over here bringing you, Cascadia Rolling. This is going to be giving you 2 campaigns. We have Cascadia Rolling Print and Place for $10. We have Pledge Manager Access for $1. And we have over here the Kickstarter edition for $19, and then the Rolling Rivers edition for $19 as well. Both of them giving you the games as well as the promos you can get your hands on as well. So that's a key part, because those promos are essential. This is going to be a typical Flat Out Games coverage. First of all, you can check out coverage on the game. I highly recommend the game. I'm a huge fan of it. I really enjoy the Cascadia Rolling series of games, and you can check out my review on that. You can check out a ton of other reviews. A lot of people have covered these games, but basically to me, it's not the deepest roll and write I've played, but it's a roll and write that gives you plenty of variety that makes it engaging and fun to go through. So overall, big fan of the games. Past that, this is going to follow a typical Flat Out Games Kickstarter coverage, which is to say, usually their games have lots of wide retail availability from AEG, very easy to get your hands on, and sometimes easy to get your hands on at a cheaper price point. The main reason to back their games is usually you're getting a decent price point plus the promos. So overall, once you factor in the promos, I usually recommend getting your hands on these games if possible. Although specifically for this campaign, I will say, I think the real savings is only there if you're getting both. If you're getting $35 for both them, that's what I think the main savings is. And again, that's because of the nature of shipping. Even though they're giving you a good price on the game, and they're giving you promos, once you factor in shipping, it's usually more complicated to say what's worth it. And I think for sure on this one, I think I'd only really recommend getting this one if you're at least getting the $35 pledge. And honestly, if you want to bundle up with somebody else and get a little less money and a little less shipping on the $67 pledge, that's going to be even better. And you can go really crazy with your entire game group and or gifts and get the ×6 copy, which again will save you a few dollars. I think it saves you like $2, but it also saves you the shipping costs as well. So overall, I think that this isn't one that I recommend for one that will hold its value, especially in terms of once you factor in your shipping and your sunk cost there. I don't think you're getting your money back on this one if it's not for you. But if you are someone who's pretty sure you want this and your question is just how to get it, I do think getting on the crowdfunding campaign once you factor in those promos, if you're getting both, makes sense. As far as whether you should get both, I don't think you need to. I think that if you're playing it above the 4-player count, then yes, definitely get both because that'll help you over there. But if you're not playing it above 4 players, I think you'll get most of what you want out of a single game. There might be the FOMO aspect. I respect the FOMO. It's there. It's present. I want both. I I know that, but ultimately there's a lot of overlap between the games, and I think for most people, one game will be enough unless you're trying to play it above 4 players, so there's that aspect to consider as well. So should you back it, should you not? Will it hold its value? It won't hold its value, but it still might be the best opportunity to get your hands in it if you are interested in this game. And that's basically what we have over here, which means it's time for our picks of the week. As usual, picks of the week, we have 2 over here. We have the game that I am most personally interested in, as well as the game that is most likely to hold its value. And to that end, once again, it's surprising how often that the 2 align in terms of most holding it, in terms of very often the one I'm most interested in is also the one that most holds value, and that's true with over here, Thunder Road Vendetta, Carnival of Chaos, is both the game I'm most personally interested in, but also the game that I think will most hold its value, but I'm going to give it the holding its value pick. If you are interested in any game on the table, any of the games we covered today, this is the one that I think is the safest back as far as sheer amount of will it hold its value, will it not, if you're trying to get your hands on this one. It's just, people want this game, it's been sought after for a long time, retail presence is plenty, but if you want that Maximum Chrome Edition, this is going to be a chance to get it, and it'll be totally fine as far as holding its value. And if you're looking for my personal interest pick of the week, I was torn between 2, but I'm going to go with the one that I know I'm keeping. I almost wanted to give it to Ostia over here, because Ostia is a game I really enjoy, especially with the Pirates expansion, but ultimately I'm going to give it to Cascadia Rolling. And the main difference is because I find that games like Ostia fall into a middle ground for me where even though I enjoy it, they're always competing with so many games and limited game time that I'm not 100% confident it's a game that I hold on to. I know I enjoy it. I definitely recommend it. But also I'm playing a lot of games, both old and new at all times, and that one has a slightly harder time, sticking around. I think it will for right now, but time will tell. But as Cascadia Rolling rights get a lot of play. They're easy to pull out when you don't want to play something long. They are easier to table, and also it has a strong solo mode as well. So this one, Cascadia Rolling, is going to be my pick of the week as a game that I know I'll table. I already know I enjoy. I've already played it like 7 or 8 times, which is a pretty decent amount of plays for a prototype, and I'm very much looking forward to getting the final version of this game because sadly I had to send off the prototype that I had currently. And that is basically going to be everything, which brings us to the games coming up next week. Like I mentioned already, we have 4. We have 4 games coming up next week, only because, well, you'll see in a second. First of all, we have Starforge, hand-painted sci-fi terrain by Dwarven Forge, going to be launching with 3,600 people following this one. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I'm very curious, because it's coming to you from Dwarven Forge, 3,600 people following it. And then we have Dungeons and Lasers Caves, which brings you more terrain over here, coming with 10,000 people following the campaign, coming from Arc Studio. Both these are going to be launching very shortly. Both these bringing premium terrain to your table. I'm very curious which one's going to be higher funded, because Dwarven Forge campaigns tend to do incredibly well, but then again, so do Arc Studios. There's more people following it. I'm very, very, very curious to see how both of these campaigns do. And in other non-terrain campaigns, we have Wrath launching on GameFound very shortly with 10,000 followers. And then one that I'm very intrigued by, we have Armello over here with only 2,800 followers. I thought this would be more popular. I'm curious to see how the game does, but Armello is going to be launching on Kickstarter, and I'm very intrigued to see how well this one translates to the tabletop, both in terms of the following it brings, but also in terms of the game itself. And that is basically everything we have. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks for being with me on this two-back or not-to-back journey, and as always, I lost my train of thought. As always, I hope you appreciate this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one. Why is Peter Pan always flying? Because he never lands. I like that joke because it never gets old.